The chronometer on Zephyr's wrist read 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. The great cog had ceased its turning. Again, Zephyr, a bard whose songs wove futures, knew this meant trouble. Trouble with a capital T, etched in rust and powered by grief. Once, Zephyr had graced the gilded stages of Aethelberg, their voice a conduit for prophecies sung to the rhythmic pulse of meticulously crafted automatons. Now they stood in the desolate heart of the gear-grind wastes, a landscape of shattered gears, corroded pipes, and the skeletal remains of colossal clockwork beasts. Zephyr's instrument wasn't the usual lute or lyre. It was a chronophone, a marvel of clockwork and vacuum tubes, allowing them to channel the echoes of timelines through song. They could strum a mournful chord and glimpse the fall of empires, or pluck a hopeful melody and see the sprout of a new dawn. But lately, all their chronophone revealed were fractured reflections of a future drowning in ash. A year ago, Zephyr had sung a prophecy, a warning of Aethelberg's impending doom, foretold by a rogue temporal anomaly. 3 months later, the anomaly struck Aethelberg. Once a beacon of steampunk innovation, was reduced to smoldering rubble. Zephyr, conveniently absent during the catastrophe, was branded a scapegoat, a saboteur, a traitor to the crown. They fled into the wastes, haunted by the ghosts of their unheeded warnings. Their current refuge was a ramshackle settlement called Rusthaven, a haven for outcasts, scavengers, and those who simply wished to be forgotten. It was ruled in a loose and anarchic fashion by a formidable woman named Ada Lovelace. No relation to the legendary programmer, though she certainly possessed a similar intellect and a penchant for intricate clockwork modifications. Another cog failure, Zephyr, Ada said, emerging from her workshop, her voice raspy from years of inhaling metal dust. This is the 5th this month. Something's destabilizing the temporal weave. Zephyr winced. The weave is fraying, they confirmed, their fingers nervously tracing the intricate gears of their chronophone. I've seen glimpses more temporal anomalies worse than Aethelberg, Ada sighed, wiping her hands on her oil-stained apron. Great, just what we needed, another apocalypse. Remind me again why I bother fixing this blasted world. Their conversation was cut short by a commotion at the entrance of Rusthaven. Leading them was a stern-faced Captain Marius, a man whose uniform was as immaculate as his reputation was ruthless. He was a hound of the crown, tasked with bringing Zephyr to justice. Zephyr, Marius announced, his voice amplified by a metallic resonator in his helmet. You are hereby apprehended for the destruction of Aethelberg and the murder of Councillor Theron. Surrender peacefully, and your sentence may be mitigated. Zephyr stared in disbelief. Murder? They had only ever foreseen destruction, never caused it. I am innocent, Zephyr protested, their voice trembling. I warned them about Aethelberg. I would never. Silence! Marius barked, and the sentinels advanced, their gears whirring ominously. Ada stepped forward, placing herself between Zephyr and the sentinels. Hold! On what evidence do you base these accusations, Captain? Evidence recovered from Zephyr's workshop in Aethelberg, Marius replied, a smug look on his face. A chronophone modification that amplified the temporal anomaly. A confession penned in their own hand, and eyewitness testimony placing them near the blast site shortly before the city's destruction. They had been meticulous in covering their tracks when they fled Aethelberg, but someone clearly possessed the resources and the motive to plant false evidence. But who? And why? Ada, ever the pragmatist, knew that arguing with Marius was futile. He was simply following orders. She turned to Zephyr. Run. I'll buy you some time. Zephyr hesitated. I can't leave you to face them. Don't be a fool, Ada snapped. You're the only one who can understand what's happening to the temporal weave. You have to find a way to stop it. Ada, meanwhile, unleashed a cloud of steam and gears, disabling several of the sentinels and forcing Marius to retreat temporarily. Zephyr's escape took them deeper into the gear-grind wastes, a perilous journey fraught with dangers. They navigated treacherous terrain, dodging rogue automatons and scavenging for scraps of food and water. The weight of the accusations pressed down on them, threatening to crush their spirit. They were a prophet without honor, a fugitive hunted by those they had tried to save. The temporal anomalies weren't random occurrences. They were being deliberately manipulated, amplified by a technology far more advanced than anything they had ever encountered. Someone was using the anomalies to rewrite history, to reshape the future in their own twisted image. But who? And what was their ultimate goal? The answer, Zephyr realized, lay in the ruins of Aethelberg. Despite the city's destruction, rumors persisted of a hidden vault, containing the research of the city's most brilliant minds, including schematics for a device known as the Chronarium, a machine capable of controlling the flow of time itself. Reaching Aethelberg was a gamble, but Zephyr had no choice. They needed to clear their name, uncover the truth, and stop whoever was manipulating the temporal weave before it was too late. The ruins of Aethelberg were a grim testament to the power of the temporal anomalies. Buildings were twisted and warped, metal fused with stone, and echoes of past events played out like ghostly performances. The air hummed with residual temporal energy, making it difficult to focus, to think clearly. It was in this chaotic landscape that Zephyr encountered a peculiar figure, a hunched-over man with a tangle of wires sprouting from his scalp and goggles, magnifying his already unnervingly large eyes. "Looking for something, little songbird?" Kronos asked, his voice raspy and distorted by the electronic implants in his throat. "Perhaps a glimpse into the past? Or a peek at the future? I have all the time in the world, you see." Zephyr, wary of the man's unsettling demeanor, kept their hand on their chronophone. "I'm looking for the hidden vault," they said, "the one containing the Chronarium schematics." Kronos chuckled, a dry, rattling sound. "Ah, the Chronarium, a dangerous toy in the wrong hands. Except, perhaps, you? Do you know where it is?" Zephyr pressed. "Knowledge is a currency, little songbird," Kronos said, his eyes gleaming with avarice. "And I am a very greedy man. But tell me, why do you seek this vault? What song do you hope to sing with the Chronarium's power?" Zephyr hesitated. Could they trust this strange man? But they were running out of time. "Someone is manipulating the temporal weave," they explained. "They're using temporal anomalies to rewrite history. I need to stop them." "The weave unraveling? That is concerning, very concerning indeed. Very well, songbird. I will help you, but in return, you must promise me something. When you find the Chronarium, you must let me study it. I want to understand its secrets, to unravel the mysteries of time itself." Zephyr, seeing no other option, agreed. Kronos, true to his word, led them through the twisted ruins, navigating hidden passages and disarming temporal traps. He knew Aethelberg like the back of his hand, a testament to his years spent scavenging its secrets. The door was sealed with a complex temporal lock, a series of interlocking gears that required a precise sequence of temporal frequencies to unlock. "This is where your chronophone comes in, songbird," Kronos said. "You must resonate with the temporal frequencies of the lock, sing the song that unlocks the door." Zephyr took a deep breath and began to play. Their fingers danced across the strings of their chronophone, weaving a melody that echoed through the ruins. The air crackled with energy as the chronophone synchronized with the temporal lock. The vault was a marvel of steampunk engineering, filled with rows of gleaming consoles, humming generators, and stacks of blueprints and schematics. At the center of the room stood the Chronarium, a massive clockwork device that pulsed with temporal energy. It was even more magnificent and terrifying than Zephyr had imagined. As Zephyr approached the Chronarium, they noticed a figure standing in the shadows, their back turned to them. The figure turned, and Zephyr gasped. It was Counselor Theron, the man they had been accused of murdering. "But you're dead," Theron smiled, a cold, calculating smile. Not quite. Let's just say I've taken precautions, temporal precautions. He revealed a device on his wrist, a miniaturized version of the chronarium, capable of manipulating small pockets of time. I've been using the chronarium to rewrite my own history, to ensure my survival, my power, and you, Zephyr, were a threat to my plans. Your prophecies were too accurate, too dangerous, so I framed you and sent you running. But why? Zephyr asked, their voice filled with disbelief. Control over time itself. With the chronarium, I can reshape the world to my liking, erase my enemies, and become the ultimate ruler. Zephyr realized the full extent of Theron's madness. He wasn't just trying to save himself. He was trying to become a god. You can't do this, Zephyr said, their voice hardening. You'll destroy everything. I think not, Theron said, raising his hand. Now it's time for you to disappear permanently. He activated the device on his wrist, and a wave of temporal energy washed over Zephyr. But just as they were about to succumb, Kronos intervened. He lunged at Theron, tackling him to the ground. The two men wrestled, the device on Theron's wrist sparking and sputtering. Run, Songbird! Kronos yelled. Stop him! You're the only one who can! Zephyr, summoning their remaining strength, rushed towards the chronarium. They knew that if Theron managed to activate it, the consequences would be catastrophic. They had to find a way to disable the machine, to sever Theron's control. They frantically examined the chronarium, searching for a weakness, a flaw in its intricate design. If they could disrupt those conduits, they might be able to overload the system. Taking a deep breath, Zephyr began to play their chronophone. They poured all their energy, all their hope, all their fear into the music. The chronophone resonated with the chronarium, creating a feedback loop that amplified the machine's inherent instability. The temporal conduits began to flicker and spark. Theron, realizing what Zephyr was doing, broke free from Kronos and lunged towards them. But it was too late. The chronarium reached critical mass, and with a deafening roar, it exploded in a burst of temporal energy. Time seemed to warp and twist, creating paradoxes and anomalies. Theron was caught in the blast, his body dissolving into a stream of temporal particles. Kronos, shielding himself with his arms, was thrown against a wall, unconscious. Zephyr, miraculously, survived the blast, though they were severely weakened. They lay on the floor, their chronophone shattered, their body aching, their mind reeling. The chronarium was destroyed, but the temporal weave was still intact, albeit weakened. Theron was gone, but the damage he had done would take time to repair. They saw Kronos stirring, his eyes blinking in confusion. What happened?" he stammered. "We stopped him," Zephyr said, their voice hoarse. "Theron is gone. The chronarium is destroyed." Kronos sighed, a mixture of relief and disappointment on his face. "So, no more secrets of time for me?" "Perhaps not," Zephyr said. "But we still have time itself, and that's a mystery worth exploring." Together, Zephyr and Kronos emerged from the ruins of Aethelberg. They were no longer fugitives, but heroes. News of their bravery spread throughout the Geargrind wastes. Ada Lovelace, upon hearing of Zephyr's vindication, sent a team to repair the chronophone, using whatever materials they could scavenge. Captain Marius, realizing he had been misled, issued a formal apology and offered Zephyr a position as a temporal advisor to the crown. But Zephyr declined. They had seen enough of politics and power. They wanted to use their gifts to heal the world, to help rebuild what had been lost, to sing a song of hope for the future. Ada, with a rare smile, embraced them. The residents of the settlement celebrated their return, singing and dancing late into the night. Zephyr, once a lonely fugitive, had found a home, a purpose, and a future worth singing about. The temporal weave was still fragile, but with the help of their friends and the power of their song, they were determined to mend it, one note at a time. Zephyr spent the next few years traveling the Geargrind wastes, using their chronophone to predict and avert temporal anomalies. They became a symbol of hope, for a world desperately in need of it. One evening, as Zephyr sat by a crackling fire in Rusthaven, strumming their repaired chronophone, they saw a vision of a future where the temporal weave was strong and vibrant, where the gear-grind wastes were green and thriving, where the echoes of the past sang a song of harmony. It was a future worth fighting for, a future worth singing about. And Zephyr, the bard who told the future through song, was ready to lead the way.